As an ad agency owner or maybe a marketing consultant, you want to leverage AI to stay competitive and deliver exceptional value to your clients. And that matters because your relevance and revenue depend on being ahead of the curve. But you're overwhelmed because AI is evolving so dang fast, and you're not sure where to start or how to make the time meaningful. So welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and today I am thrilled to welcome back to the show, Drew McLellan. He's the CEO of the Agency Management Institute, who serves 30,000 agencies worldwide. And Drew just released groundbreaking research on how clients really feel about AI. In this episode, you'll discover the 3 distinct AI mindsets among your clients and how to speak to each one of them. Why transparency about your AI usage builds trust instead of threatening your business, and the single biggest revenue opportunity AI creates right now for your agency. And this is an opportunity most are completely missing. As you're about to hear, Drew lays it all on the line in this episode. If you're an agency principal or marketing consultant and you're not fully embracing AI and learning what it can do for your clients and your business, then you're going to be left behind quickly. But it's not too late.
A lot of agency owners are so entrenched in the work that they're not doing their job, which is sort of sitting above the work and being sort of that innovation officer and looking for new ways to bring value to clients and to the team. And so if agency owners or leaders don't stop and say, if I invest, as you said, an hour a day doing this, I'm going to save 20 hours a week by the end of the month. And if you're the one that's far behind and you're still doing it the old way, you're going to be irrelevant. That's the real risk of this, is if you do not figure out how to make the time and how to make the time meaningful, you are going to be irrelevant. It would be like being an agency that doesn't use computers.
So let's learn what Drew learned from his latest Agency Edge research report titled Leading Through the AI Revolution, the New Competitive Edge for Agencies. Hello, Drew. Welcome back to the Business of Story.
Thanks for having me back. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
It's good to see you again. For those of our listeners who don't know who you are and what the Agency Management Institute is and does, could you give us a bit of a backstory?
Sure. So Agency Management Institute, which is much easier just to say AMI, is an organization. Think of it as a for-profit education association. We know that most agency owners are accidental business owners, and it's our job to help them run the business of their business better. And so we focus on teaching around what is the owner supposed to do, and that's everything from what are they supposed to do day in and day out, but also how do they build a business that they could sell someday, and what does that whole process looks like? We talk a lot about staff. How do you staff today? How do you get the work done? How do you recruit and retain great talent, whether they're FTEs or they're contractors, and whether they're, in your country of origin or they're somewhere else in the world today? All of that's possible. Spend a lot of time on biz dev, as you might imagine, talking about how do you define your right fit clients and get them to actually come knocking on your door rather than you going and chasing them. And then, of course, we have to talk about how do you actually get the work done, the systems and processes of an agency. And last but not least, we spend a lot of time talking about money, everything from pricing and proposals, but hopefully, how do you make more money and how do you keep more of the money you make? And so that's really the focus of AMI. And my wife and I own that business together and run that business together. And whether both she and I have owned agencies for many, many years. And anybody who works for AMI in a coach capacity or something like that is either a former agency owner or a current agency owner. So we are very close to the work because we all did the work.
And when you characterize a lot of your membership as accidental owners, and me being a former ad agency owner too, I was very explicit about what I wanted to do so there was no accident. Of course, I created lots of accidents in it. But are you talking about these people that are like great writers or designers or good advertising minds, and they have a client, and then they get another client, and then, oh my God, they got 3 clients, and now I got to hire somebody, and next thing you know, they got a staff of 10 people working for them, and they're like, how in the hell did I arrive here?
That's exactly right. Most agencies are born out of a layoff or some other situation where you hang up a shingle for a while till I get a job at my next agency. And next thing you've been so successful at networking and connecting with people and solving problems that you look around and you're like, wait a minute, I have 5 employees and I don't know anything about employment law, or am I filing my taxes in the right way? Or how do I know if I can afford another employee? There's just all kinds of aspects, as you know, to running an agency that aren't taught in a traditional 4-year education or MBA program. They're very specific to our industry, and it's hard to find those KPIs and guideposts. And that's really what we provide, is just sort of the shortcuts to how to do this well and profitably and, hopefully a little less stressfully.
Mm. How long have you been running AMI, and how many members do you have?
Yeah, so I sound like one of those hair club commercial guys. So I was actually a client of the company that was the precursor to AMI, and the gentleman who started it, who was also an agency owner, was in his 70s and wanted to retire, and he said, "Drew, I think you're the guy." And it's a long story, but eventually I acquiesced and decided I was the guy. So I bought it in 2010. So I've had it for 16 years now, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we serve, it kind of depends on how you define members. So we have about 500 paying members. But, when you talk about people who come to workshops or listen to the podcast, our mailing list, people who are hearing from us on a regular basis. So a lot of people get taught for free, which is part of our model for sure. We probably serve about, 30,000 agencies worldwide every year. And we have a close relationship with about 500 of them.
Yeah. So in the time that you've had it, these 16 years, I imagine it's safe to say that you probably haven't had to deal with such an upheaval in the agency world as AI is creating right now.
Well, it's interesting when you go back and you sort of look at, we had the Great Recession, and then we had COVID, and then we had the Great Resignation, and now we have AI. It just sort of seems like, life is always throwing agency owners and leaders a curveball, but AI is a big one. And, I believe it is probably, in terms of the long range impact on our business, bigger than anything any of us have seen in our professional tenure, for sure.
Yeah, I've been in the advertising world, agency world for over 40 years, and I've never seen anything quite like it. When
Yeah.
I was reading through your report, it reminded me of kind of a funny technology thing that happened to me back in 2010. It was right after Steve Jobs launched his iPad, right? So I bought one immediately because I'm early adopter in tech, especially in the ad world. I'm just kind of curious what it was.
Right.
And I was driving out to our largest client, Forever Living Products International at the time, and I had my copywriter with me. He was coming out, and he was very much of a Luddite when it came to technology. He's like, nope, I'm going to let everybody else adopt it, and then once it blows up and they fix it, I'm going to take it. So we're driving out there, and he looked at me sort of suspiciously, and he goes, why did you buy that gadget? And I go, oh, this iPad? Yeah, I mean, what's the deal with that? And remember, this is a guy that still had a flip phone when we all had
Wow.
iPhones. And one time I had a hard time getting a hold of Dan, and I said, is something wrong with, I couldn't reach you? And he said to me, well, my phone's down. And I said, what, did the hinge break?
Right.
Brr, ting.
Right.
So, and I've known Dan a long time, so I could get away with that jab. Anyways, I said to him, I go, our clients hire us to always be 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the trend.
That's right.
In everything, creative and communication and marketing and planning, and especially
social change.
technology.
I mean, think about it. We are a leading edge industry. We are always changing the world out ahead of us.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's what they hire us for. And he
Right.
said, well, I thought they pay us for our creative. I go, well, they do, but that's not first. They pay
Right.
us for what goes on between our ears,
Right.
first and foremost, and then everything is secondary too. And I said, you watch what happens when I walk into the conference room with the very first iPad that this company has ever seen. And Drew, the first 15 minutes of that meeting was handing my iPad around and them oohing and awing over it. And when I walked out, I said, see, Dan, we are just modeling that we are ahead of our clients, and that's
right.
what they want us to be. So AI, I'm so surprised at the reluctancy of so many people, not just agencies, but clients and others that are like, I've got AI fatigue. I don't really want to deal with it right now.
Well, when you think about it, I equate this to when computers came to agencies. But computers were a thing, and they had a handful of software, so it was really manageable. It didn't seem manageable at the time. It seemed like a crazy change. But with AI, 10 new tools are launched every single day. And so I get the fatigue and I get the nervousness around this is so big and this is so evolutionary and I don't want to get it wrong. And there are so many choices, so many paths. And I think what people are missing is we're going to change tools. The tools are going to evolve. They're going to sort out. ChatGPT may not be the, leader that it is today in a year or 5 years. But how we use the tools and the ways that we use AI to think deeper and better and faster, that's what we have to be sort of honing right now. The tools are gonna be the tools, but just thinking about what can I do that adds even more value to the work that we do on behalf of clients? How do I get smarter? How do I help them advance their goals faster with these tools? Those are the questions we need to be asking ourselves, not which tool. It's too soon to know which tool.
Yeah. Well,
And
you
a
were
lot of
asked,
the tools do the same thing, right?
yeah. And you asked a lot of these same questions in your most recent report, the Agency Edge Research Report series that you do with the amazing Susan Bear of Audience
Yep.
Audit. And
Yep.
as I mentioned before we started recording, I've been through that thing 3 different times and I was really blown away. You presented it to your group of member agencies earlier this year.
Right.
What was the single most, I don't know, enlightening finding for you that came out of that report?
Yeah. So, Audience Audit and have been partners for about 15 years, and every year we go out into the field and we talk to people who hire agencies. And we pick a topic, and then we just drill really deep into that topic. So, we've talked about everything from what makes you hire an agency. A couple years ago, we said, how, where, and when do you give your current agency more money? And this year, we knew that it had to be about AI. And so, the focus of the research for 2025 was, hey, clients, how are you feeling about AI? How are you using it? How is your agency currently using it? What do you wish your agency was doing with it? And sort of how do you envision the future of it? And no surprise, kind of to your iPad story, the clients are further behind. They have legal departments that won't let them do things. They have constraints around, corporate rules. One of the reasons why I think agencies are always on the leading edge is because we we don't have the same level of rules that a lot of our clients do. We're able, especially small independent agencies, we're able to move so much more nimbly and do things that feel riskier because, we're kind of in charge of our own destiny. So, a couple things that came out of it that really surprised me were, one, they most of them said they're using AI inside their organization, but when we asked them how or what tools they were using, you and I were laughing before we hit the record button. The 2 most common tools they're using are, well, ChatGPT, which everyone on the planet's using, and then the Grammarly and Canva were their 2 big go-tos. So when you think about sort of AI evolution and adoption, you know, Grammarly and Canva are not really cutting edge. So they're behind. So that's one thing. But the big one that I think is the huge opportunity for agencies is that what they said loud and clear was, we expect our agencies to be experts in this, and we want them to bring that expertise into our organizations, not just to the marketing department, but we want them telling our entire organization how we can leverage AI to our advantage. So you think about the revenue opportunities and the new revenue streams that that opens up for agencies, it's pretty staggering.
Yeah, it really is. I was speaking with a junior in the Edward R. Murrow of College of Communication at Washington State University, where I went to school. And she was in the PR sequence. And I asked her, I go, how much are they teaching you about AI there? And she goes, oh, some are and some aren't, a little here, a little there. And I said, well, personally, how much are you investing in learning about AI? Well, I'm doing a little bit here, a little bit there. And I said to her, and I don't know if it's right, but I think it's right, Drew, for having done this for over 4 decades, is I go, I don't know that you are going to get hired as an entry-level writer coming out of school, but if you really knew how to use AI in public relations and publicity and so forth, then you will probably be swept up in a heartbeat because whoever is hiring you probably doesn't know that much about it.
Right. It's really been interesting. So, as I've watched how our agencies are approaching AI, it isn't always the air quote kids who are jumping on. It's really not age dependent, it's curiosity and exploration dependent. So if you are an agency owner or leader who is curious, who likes to serve, as you said, be the first kid on the block with the iPad, who wants to play with the new technology, who's wondering, how can these tools help me evolve my agency to be different from everybody else? Then regardless of if you're 30 or you're 60, you're in it to win it. And so I do think we don't see very many agencies who are like, we don't do anything with AI. But I will say the depth and variance of how agencies are leaning into it is pretty dramatic.
Yeah. Was thinking when I was going through your report again, too, because my brain's always a branding brain. It's like if I was running Parking Code today, my old agency, I would reframe it instead of being an advertising agency, I would be an advertising agency. And I would throw an I in there, AID advertising agency, as corny as that may sound,
Yeah.
but I would be all in. Now, in your report, you found 3 distinct AI mindsets among agency clients. Could you introduce us to those 3 and what are the significant characteristics of them?
Yeah. So it was interesting. So, as you know, Agency Edge and Susan's work is often looking at an audience and saying, these people all look the same on the outside. If we were in a room with all of
Mm,
them, they're all CMOs, they're all, a variety of ages. If we're gonna put them in categories, how do we put them in categories based on their attitudes and beliefs, which are impossible to see from the outside, but are really telling from the inside? And so, this study revealed 3 different sort of attitudinal groups. The first one, no surprise, are the AI embracers. So these are the CMOs and business owners who are all in and are trying to figure out how can they really leverage AI? They're the ones experimenting, they're the ones that are investing in different tools and really starting to apply them. And then there were the AI skeptics. And so these are people who are nervous about it. And they're not nervous about it because they think it's a flash in the pan and it's going to go away. I think they're smarter than that. But they just don't know how to wrap their arms around it. And they see all of the legal implications. They read about how if you put something into ChatGPT, the whole world's going to be able to see it. And, they don't understand how to use it in a safe way yet. And so it makes them anxious. And then, of course, there are the AI opportunists, which are, this is going to be a way that I'm going to save a buck, that I'm going to figure out a way to squeeze a little more, juice out. And I am thinking that this is going to augment or replace things I'm doing now. So the embracers are the ones who are like, hey, agency, this isn't this is not going to replace you, but I want you to use these tools to help me get further faster. One of the big surprises in this study was very few of the respondents thought about AI in terms of I'm going to be able to pay the agency less. It wasn't a lot of that. It was really, I think this will make my agency better. I'm going to pay them the same amount of money, but I'm going to get better and faster from them, deeper, better, faster. It wasn't really about cheaper, which I think is something a lot of agencies worry about. Like, I know what AI is going to do. It's going to make everybody say that I have to be cheaper. And we're not seeing that yet. Maybe we'll see it down the road, but we're not seeing that yet.
And so how would you recommend agencies speak to all three of these different mindsets?
Yeah. So for the AI embracers, obviously, and it's interesting, you have to ask a few questions to sort of figure out who is what, right? Because again,
Mhm.
it's not based on age, it's not based on budget, it's not based on part of the country they're from. It really is more about sort of just their belief set and their attitudes. So for the AI embracers, this is a huge opportunity for agencies to really be able to go in as kind of the Sherpa that is guiding that client through the evolution that AI can bring to their business. And this is the client that is gonna invite you into the R&D team or the sales team or the customer service team, and so lots of new revenue streams and opportunities for you to show up as a teacher, for you to help them with their tech stack, for you to help them think about how to use these tools to be better than their competitors, lots of opportunity there. On the skeptic side, it's about assuaging their fears, right? So it's talking about how you have guardrails in place to make sure that their data stays private. It's about you being really clear about what tools you're using and why you're using them. That was one of the other big takeaways from this study was we said, how are your agencies using it and how do you feel about it? And overwhelmingly, all three groups said, pretty sure my agency's using it, but they're not telling us that they're using it, and they're not telling us how, when, and why, which feels like they're hiding something. So one of the big takeaways when we presented this data at the Build a Better Agency Summit in May that we were saying to agency owners is, look, you have to have a policy in place that says, hey, here's how we as an agency use AI. Here's why we use it. Here's the benefits of using it. You just need to be more open about what you're using and what the results are and why it makes sense and it's a benefit to the client. So the AI skeptics, it's really about more transparency and helping them understand that there absolutely are ways to use it without the world having access to your most secret and private data.
I'm just going to jump in real quick there because you said something that completely sparked an aha moment in me. And it was when Drew, about 15 years ago, where I was really adopting storytelling in our StoryCycle system into the Park & Co agency. And we were having some success with our clients with it, a lot of success. And some of our old clients, which they had never seen this approach before, I came to them and we started going through it and they loved it. And they asked me, they said, would you teach my team how to do this? And I was not prepared for that. My first reaction was, well, hell no, that's my IP. You won't
That's
need
right.
me anymore.
That's how I make my money, right?
Yeah. And then I immediately go, of course I will, because
Right.
it occurred to me that was a linchpin. That was a differentiator in our industry that Park
Yep.
not only builds these for these clients, he teaches them how to use it, which I also then found that our campaigns were more successful when their internal team knew what the magic was behind it. And I can't tell you how many agency principals I had when I would tell them what I was doing. They said, why would you give that away to them? Aren't you afraid that they are going to leave you and do it on their own? I said, no, what has happened is they have increased their budgets with
Right.
me.
Right. Because now they understand what you're doing and how hard it is. And by the way, they didn't all of a sudden hire 5 more people. They don't
Right.
really have the bandwidth to do it internally, but now they're better clients because they understand their role, the give and take between client and agency. They understand their part and they get
Yeah.
better at their part, which to your point is now that I get it and I value it more, I'm going to spend more money on it and I'm going to give you better input so that the outputs are better.
And by the way, you're no longer a vendor, you're a partner
That's
because
right.
you are co-creating and
Right.
you are leveling them up as professionals. And they appreciate that.
That's
They
right.
never forget it. So
Well, and again, it's sort of like when you go to a restaurant and you ask the chef for a recipe. Sure, you might go home and try it, but that doesn't mean you're not going back to that restaurant to have the professional do it for you again, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I think
exactly.
that is a short-sightedness of some agencies that they think they have to hide their answers so close as opposed to being a better teacher to the clients, which ultimately benefits them. So
Yeah.
the third group, the AI opportunists, these are the ones who think they can just have ChatGPT do everything for them and they don't need an agency anymore. And so Susan and I called this our, wait until they get it group. Like, you may have to, if you have a client like that who's starting to pull a bunch of work in because they're just cranking out the generic junk that happens when you don't actually know how to use these tools, you may have to wait till they stumble a couple times or stub their toe before they're ready to come back to you and go, okay, I get what you were saying, which is this is absolutely a garbage in, garbage out equation, and we don't really know how to do this. And then I think they move into one of the other groups, but it may take them some failure first before they're ready to be a better client for us right now.
Well, and it's an opportunity too for you as an agency principal to guide them.
For
It's
sure.
kind of like raising kids.
Right.
Go ahead and let them make some mistakes, and then you come back in and say, "Well, can I show you maybe another way to do that?"
Right. Right. Absolutely.
I call it when I've seen clients do that, use just go to general AI, ChatGPT, and crank out just garbage. I call it bottification versus beautification, because
Yeah.
if you do it right, AI can really advance your messaging, your
No
cause, your
doubt. No
strategy
doubt.
when you know what you're doing. And that's a beautiful place for an agency principal to come in and say, let me show you, let me
Yeah.
be your guide. And
Yeah.
they being your customers will be forever grateful. If they ever think about going up for an agency review, are they going to think again about like, well, Jerry did help me out of this mess. Mary did help me get through this. I think maybe we'll just keep who we've got and keep rolling forward.
Well, I think you can demonstrate that you are finding the best of both worlds, which is the human side of it. You know what AI can't do is ask innovative questions. It can't connect dots the way a human can. It can't understand the psychology of a buyer the way that we can. But boy, can it crunch data, and boy, can it help ask us better questions to better refine the work we do. It's a great thinking partner. And I think that's the key, is that we have to help clients understand that AI is a partner for us to do better work, but independent of us, it's a machine that's just going to spit out the same stuff no matter who puts
Hmm.
something in. And so, in a world where we have to differentiate ourselves, you do need the human part of that equation.
Oh, without a doubt. And
Yeah.
the things that we've seen working in AI, especially in brand story development and so forth, is what it does for me and our users is it does three things, Drew. It, number one, will validate what I'm
Hmm.
already doing well and not just kiss my ass. It's like, oh
Right.
yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, I get that. It will reveal gaps in what are we missing, where are we leaving money on the table, how are we not positioned correctly, because it'll raise questions that will make you think differently
Yep.
about your
Yep.
own communications. And then finally, it does inspire you with new ways to think about your marketing, and that you're so busy, you're so in the fog of war, it's hard to sit down and take the time, take a deep breath and think strategically, where it will then pose lots of great questions for you to go and ponder.
Right. Well, I think it opens the door to possibilities that may not be obvious. And so, again, to your point, it asks questions that then allow your intelligence and your client knowledge and your X number of years of experience to coalesce with that and go, oh, wait a minute. Like, that's a path it would have taken me 3 days. Like, I would have gotten there, but that's a path that I would have had to go through several layers of thinking to get to, and boom, in 5 minutes, now that path is revealed to me, and now I get to explore it more. But we still, as humans, have to explore it. We still have to sort of unpack it and figure out how to make it work for the client. And so, I think the clients that understand that and the agencies that understand that are gonna be the ones that are far out ahead. And the good news is this is all so new. There's plenty of time to sort
Mhm.
of reevaluate the way you're thinking about AI as an agency owner or leader, or a CMO or a business owner, and kind of recognize that this is not a flash in the pan. This is not going away. It is so woven into every piece of technology we already use. And you know what? We've been using it for years. We just didn't call it that. Netflix has been suggesting movies for us for a really long time. So, how do you use it to get smarter and faster and more insightful? That's the question.
Well, is that the second, the follow-on survey that you may do with Susan, and that's to go out and talk to the ad agency world themselves and say, how are you using it? How are you getting your arms around all of these different tools? How do you bring them in for a consistent product? Because I would imagine a lot of principals would say, I get it, Drew. Yeah, I hear you. But where do I start? Do I have time to do this? I mean, where do I find the time to do this?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, or what are you hearing from your members?
Yeah, so that's one of the conundrums right now is like, who owns it, right? So most agencies don't have a technology officer or an innovation officer. So in some cases, it's falling on the creative department. In some cases, it's falling on the strategy department. But who's owning it for the agency at large? Who is overseeing the task force that's experimenting with it? Who is applying those experiments and then deciding which ones are worthy of more experimentation or we're going to walk away from? Agencies are still trying to figure that out. And so, for example, in our peer groups, one of the things that every agency is being asked to present is, you know, what is what is the biggest way that AI has been a game changer for you internally? And what is the biggest way AI has been a game changer for you with clients? And so we're trying to do a lot of sort of peer-to-peer learning and sharing of ideas and resources because agencies haven't yet. Very few agencies, when I'm saying small to mid-size, 300 people or less. So privately held agencies, they don't have a role inside their organization that is owning AI and then infusing it through the rest of the organization. Much like sometimes it's the person at the front desk or it's the accountant who's responsible for your technology, right? Agencies are great at just finding somebody to do the thing. And so I do believe one of the evolutions that's going to happen in agencies is we are going to have whatever the title is, but some sort of technology officer who is driving that kind of innovation in the agencies and making sure everybody's well trained and that you have some rules and regulations around how you use it so that you're protecting yourself and clients. All of that is in the infancy stage at this point.
hmm Do you see that smaller agencies, and by smaller, I mean like, that 10 to 20 person shop, that
Yeah.
3 to 5 person shop, are they at a distinct disadvantage because they don't have the time to learn AI, or that this presents a real, democratizing, leveling the playing field, that if they get their arms wrapped around AI, then they are doing the work of a 100-person shop with their 10 folks?
I think it's both, right? So first of all, the 50 and 60 people agencies are struggling to figure out who's going to do it too. So it's not just the little guys. So I think everybody is sort of carrying the burden of how do we institutionalize this learning and this experimentation. So for a 5-person agency that all of a sudden can use some of these tools to kind of level up the deliverables, even just to say, here's a proposal, make it look and sound more, my client is X, Y, and Z. Take my generic proposal and tweak it so it's in the language that is going to be most acceptable and most comfortable for this kind of client. Even that can level up what an agency can do. And you can do it in 3 minutes, let alone, rather than 3 hours. So I do think much like COVID changed the way clients thought about where an agency was, like, I don't really care if my agency is in, Toledo, Ohio or Chicago, or do they have to be in New York or Minneapolis or LA? I think it's sort of democratized location. Like, if you're smart, I don't really care where you are because we can work together from wherever now, right? We have the technology to do that. I think AI is going to do the same thing.
Yeah. What are the biggest concerns you are hearing from your agency principals? about AI?
A lot of it is they are afraid that they're behind, right? And some of them are. And they are not sure how it's like holding a, wiggly baby, right? That just came out of the bathtub, right? They're wet, they're wiggly, and that's what AI feels like right now. It's like, I don't know how to wrap my arms around it and hold it safely because it's constantly moving and it's slippery and changing. And I think a lot of owners, that's uncomfortable, that it's not defined and it's not sort of finite. And everybody knows that this is just the beginning. And
Yeah.
so if you're behind now and you don't sort of decide how you're going to get caught up, the depth of your being behind is just going to elongate.
A wet, wiggly baby. I
That's
love
it.
that metaphor.
Yeah.
Very great. Well, we've been working with a lot of agencies ourselves, and you've seen the StoryCycle Genie. You've been through it.
Yes.
We
I mean,
ran,
what a
ran
great example of what AI can do for an agency. I mean, it's spectacular.
Well, thank you. And
Yeah.
here's a startling thing. I mean, we've been working on it for 2 years. We did a beta at the beginning of the year. We ran yours through the beta, and now it's fully fleshed out, so you can build your complete brand story brain that then feeds all of your strategy, your customer journeys, your always on brand content. And the thing is, you don't need to know a thing about AI because it's all baked in.
Right.
But what I've seen, and we have a number of agencies using it now, Drew, and thanks to you, you've sent some AMI folks our way, and I've been working with them. But a common theme I'm hearing with people is, I don't have time to use it.
Right.
I don't have time to sit down and I got to keep doing this. And to me, it's almost like they're still so busy doing kind of marketing, branding the old way that they haven't taken that deep breath and go, you know what? If you just spend a day on this, it's going to open your eyes and it is going to remove a lot of that stuff that you're doing now and not using the product. And I don't know how you get over that mindset because it's so steeped in us. Got to go, 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 go. And we say, wait a minute. Hold tight. Why don't you jump into this thing and see what it'll do for you? And it's going to, we found, reduce, cost by 99%. I'm talking about internal opportunity costs of your people doing stuff, and efficiencies up at 98% of producing things in 2% of the time it used to take you, and it's always on brand. But it's that mindset of, well, this is the way I've been doing it and I can't drag myself out of it. I'll get to the genie eventually.
Well, you know what? I think this is not an uncommon reality in agencies. I think a lot of agency owners are so entrenched in the work that they're not doing their job, which is sort of sitting above the work and being sort of that innovation officer and looking for new ways to bring value to clients and to the team. And so it's very much I absolutely should teach him or her how to fish, but it's so much easier just to do it myself. Well, the reality is we all know that that is not actually true. But if agency owners or leaders don't stop and say, if I invest, as you said, an hour a day doing this, I'm gonna save 20 hours a week by the end of the month. They don't do that math. And what's gonna happen is if they don't figure that out, they're gonna sound a lot like their clients saying, "Well, we use Grammarly and Canva and, ChatGPT," but they're not really innovating in a way that is meaningful to their clients. And so, again, sooner or later, you're gonna be in a room and they're gonna have during that day, they're gonna trot 3 agencies in and 3 agencies out, and they're gonna pick one. And if you're the one that's far behind and you're still doing it the old way because you haven't carved out the time, then you know what? You are gonna be left in the dust. That's the reality. You're gonna be irrelevant. That's the real risk of this, is if you do not figure out how to make the time and how to make the time meaningful, you are going to be irrelevant. It would be like being an agency that doesn't use computers.
Or an agency still using flip phones.
Right, that's right.
You know what? I started my agency back in 1995. Of course, I was very proud of myself, Park & Co., and I finally got my agency up and running, and I had a couple really great accounts, and my mom and dad came to town to visit, and I was 6-8 months into my agency journey at that time, and I was so proud of how busy I was and going. And we were going to meet him for lunch, and I said, well, I got to do a meeting, and then I'll meet you over here and whatever. And on the way back from lunch, it was just me and my dad. I'm driving along, and he's sitting next to me, and he's a civil engineer, had nothing to do with the advertising world. And he goes, well, it sounds like you're off to a good start, Park. And I go, I am. I'm really so happy, Dad. I hope you're proud of me. Oh, I'm proud of you. And he goes, you seem to be really, really busy. And I go, yeah, I mean, that's a good thing, isn't it? He goes, well, it is to a point. He goes, when do you take time to think? And that stopped me in my tracks, Drew. I'm like, what do you mean, Dad?
Right.
And he's like, you can't just be busy all the time. Otherwise, you're going to busy yourself into so many problems, lose so much money by being busy. You have to take time away from your work and just go and think. And I've always carried that with me. It's not always been easy, but it's so smart.
Right. Well, more so ever than before, whoever's leading the agency has to be looking out ahead and thinking about what's coming next and how can you be indispensable in whatever that next curve or corner is. That's ultimately what we're trying to do as agency folks is we want to be the partner that our clients can't imagine going into the future without us by their side. And if we're not keeping pace and we're not, to your point, we're not the first one walking into the meeting with the iPad, then why in the world would they care if we're by their side? Because we're further behind than them. We just cannot afford to be in that position.
Yeah. Well, Drew, this has been amazing. Where can people learn more about AMI and your good work? And if they are, floundering right now and need some good advice, where should they go?
Sure. They can head over to agencymanagementinstitute.com. I'm super active on LinkedIn and other places, so they can reach out there. But, we have a lot of free content. We have a podcast. We have, a free newsletter every week that's all about teaching. And so they can grab all of those. Park, I'm assuming you're going to put the executive summary for the research in with your show notes, right?
I absolutely will.
So they'll be able to grab those right there. And if you're interested in any of the past studies we've done, we have the executive summaries for the last 14 years on the website under our resource tab. So you can check that out as well.
That's fantastic. I've got your full report. I don't have your executive summary, so shoot me the PDF and I'll make sure we get the PDF or a link to your
okay. Well, go ahead and put the full report out there. Let everybody have all of it.
Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll drop that in there because it's really, really excellent, folks, and worth taking a look at. I mean, it's a vision, it's a view into the future, and that future is like right around the corner.
That's
it's
right.
Not,
right. Yeah,
it's
kind of
years
yesterday.
away.
Like we got to get there. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, Drew, thank you so much, and say hello to Susan for me next time you chat with her. It's just great having you here.
Thanks for having me on the show.
One quick way to activate AI in your agency is with the StoryCycle Genie, which is built by agency owners for agency owners to help you craft vibrant brand storytelling strategies and activation in minutes, not months. Here's what users are saying about their experience with the StoryCycle Genie.
I got goosebumps when I read it, and I was like, what sorcery is this? That because it actually reflected back to me a lot of the things that we've been working on trying to describe.
I thought it was really great. I didn't see gaps as much as opportunities. It phrased things and described what I do in ways that I hadn't considered.
It was spookily accurate. There were a lot of areas I thought, oh, this is, what is the value proposition evaluation, for instance? Something that also jumped out at me, which I loved, which was the brand archetype assessment. And it said primary, we're the sage. So we've got knowledge and expertise. And I hadn't thought about that in that way. The sage. Secondary, the magician. We're transforming events. Love that description. And then the third, which is really part of our service, is the caregiver. The sage, the magician, the caregiver. These are great takeaways. I love it.
Wow. Gave me the opportunity to try your Genie, and it is brilliant. I mean, you just did a wonderful job with that. And I'm not surprised it sort of had that impact.
It was fascinating. It was fun to see, my story translated back into this, system and looking at the archetypes and, my positioning. I was like, oh, am I doing it right? And my narrative. But it very much eye-opening into the importance of story.
I got to tell you, Parker, I was blown away by that report, and I think I kept questioning you, like, are you sure that this was generated automatically? It was remarkably insightful about how I try to position myself, and it even, I think, surfaced a couple things that I wouldn't have expected to show up in a report like that. So just very, almost goosebumpy, scary. I couldn't promote it more to people listening. Like, you got to try this thing out. It's really spooky good.
You can test the strength of your brand storytelling right now for free at StoryCycleGenie.ai. All you do is give it your name, your email address, and the URL to the website that you want to have graded. You're going to get a grade from A+ to F-, depending on how well you're doing, and a 14-point storytelling assessment to see how your brand stories are stacking up against your competition. So check it out right now at StoryCycleGenie.ai. Be here next Monday when we take a deep dive into storytelling by the numbers. Or put another way, how to turn your data into drama so that your audits and your reports stick with your audiences. Shagan Gunnarsson, author of one of the best books on storytelling I've read in a long time, is going to be here. His book is called The Storyteller's Ledger, where hindsight informs, insight connects, and foresight shapes the story. Shagan absolutely takes the numb out of numbers with his unique approach to storytelling for auditors, but you don't have to be a numbers cruncher to benefit from his remarkable storytelling wisdom. So I hope you'll join us. And until then, remember that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one extraordinary. Thanks so much for listening.